Everyone thought she was just a scared little girl hiding behind her big brother. But when the truth started slipping through the cracks, people realized she wasn't hiding. She was calculating. The cold wind stung Olivia's cheeks as she stood near the courthouse steps. At only 13, she barely came up to her brother Liam's shoulder, but her gaze didn't waver. Reporters gathered just behind the yellow tape, shouting questions. Is it true your father's being investigated? Is Olivia testifying? Liam, is your family falling apart? Liam pushed past them, holding Olivia's hand tighter. Inside. The marble walls swallowed the chaos. Olivia stayed silent. She knew what they thought, that she was fragile, in shock, too young to understand. But she knew more than any of them. 2 weeks ago, Olivia had been a regular girl in a small town. School, homework, and piano practice. Then everything fell apart. It started with a phone call during dinner. Her mother, Carolyn, had gone pale. She put the phone down without speaking. Something's happened, she whispered. Within hours, Olivia's father, Judge Thomas Rawlins, was taken into custody, charged with bribery, obstruction of justice, and falsifying court records. Everyone was stunned. Not Olivia. She had seen things. Overheard whispered calls, watched envelopes exchanged late at night, caught glimpses of documents her father quickly hid. She never said anything. She didn't want it to be true. But now the world knew. Only they didn't know everything. The courtroom buzzed with quiet voices. Liam sat with Olivia in the first row, clutching a folder. His jaw was tight. He was just 19, but looked older these days. Their lawyer leaned over. Your father won't take the stand today. We'll start with testimony from the prosecutions. Key witness, a girl named Claire Burns. Olivia turned her head sharply. She knew that name. Claire was a friend, or at least used to be. They'd done a group project last year. Olivia remembered Claire's nervous laugh, her habit of biting her nails, and her older brother who used to pick her up after school. Why was Claire a witness? The bailiff called her name. A slim teenager stepped up, avoiding Olivia's eyes. She took the oath, sat, and began speaking. My name is Claire Burns. I saw Judge Rawlins meet with my brother 3 times. He gave him money. My brother said it was for keeping quiet. He also showed me text messages where the judge asked him to lose evidence in a case. Gasps spread across the courtroom. Liam stood up. That's a lie. The judge banged the gavel. Sit down. Or leave the room. Claire's voice cracked as she went on. I didn't want to say anything. But my brother disappeared 2 nights ago. I'm scared. I think someone's trying to silence people who know the truth. Olivia gripped her chair. Claire wasn't lying. But she wasn't telling the whole story either. She knew what had really happened to Claire's brother, because she'd followed him once. She had kept that secret, even from Liam. But now, watching Claire speak, she knew she couldn't hold it. In much longer. At recess, Liam pulled her into a corner. Leave, did you know anything about this? She looked up at him, her eyes unreadable. Yes, she said. But not the way they're saying it. What do you mean? Claire's brother. He wasn't just being paid. He was threatening Dad. I heard him. He said he'd ruin us if we didn't give him money. Liam staggered back. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because I didn't know who to trust. Their lawyer stepped over. Olivia, if you know something, you might need to testify. She hesitated. If I do, I want to tell everything. Not just about Claire's brother. About what Dad did. All of it. Liam stared at her. You'd do that? You'd help bring down our own father? Olivia's voice was steady. I just want the truth. The lawyer nodded slowly. I'll talk to the judge. We may need to prepare you. As Liam and the lawyer stepped away, Olivia looked out the window at the reporters waiting below. They thought she was quiet, Because she was scared, but she wasn't afraid of the truth. She was afraid no one would. Listen, that was about to change. Asterisk, the courtroom had always been her father's kingdom. But now, Olivia walked into it like someone who'd seen the throne crumble. Not with anger, but with purpose. Everyone in the room turned as Olivia took the stand. She wore a navy blue dress. Her hair was pulled back in a simple braid. A few whispered, "Isn't she too young?" But the judge allowed it. Liam sat at the edge of his seat. Their lawyer stepped up first. "Olivia, can you tell us what you know about the night Claire's brother went missing?" She nodded. "I followed him 3 nights ago." "Why?" "Because I knew something was wrong. I saw him around our house. He kept showing up where my dad was, the grocery store, the driveway, even the library. And once I heard him say, 'On the phone, he'll pay me again or I talk.'" Murmurs moved across the courtroom. The judge raised his hand. "Order." The lawyer continued. "Where did you follow him to?" "To a parking lot near the river." "He met someone there?" "Not my father, someone else. A man in a black hoodie." They argued. I was too far to hear everything, but I saw the man shove him. Then they left in opposite directions. "Did you recognize the man in the hoodie?" "No, but I remember his voice. He said, 'You'll keep quiet now, one way or another.'" Prosecutor stood. "Miss Rawlins, why didn't you report this earlier?" "I didn't trust anyone, not even myself. I didn't want to believe my father might be involved." The prosecutor narrowed his eyes. "Is it true you once said your father was the smartest man you knew?" "Yes, and now you believe he was doing illegal things." "I believe he made choices he thought would protect us. But they weren't right." The courtroom went silent. The prosecutor tried again. "Isn't it true you only came forward after your friend Claire testified?" "No, I came forward because she didn't tell the whole truth. I couldn't sit with that anymore." Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed as the trial made headlines. Judge's daughter testifies against him. Teen exposes corruption in her own home. Olivia became the name everyone whispered. But back home, it was quieter. Liam was pacing the living room, a dozen papers in his hand. "They've frozen Mom's accounts. We can't even pay for groceries without getting questioned." Miriam, their mother, sat at the edge of the couch. "They think I knew what your father was doing," she whispered. "But I didn't, I swear." Olivia sat beside her. "I know, Mom, and the truth will come out." Liam dropped the papers on the table. "I'm going back to that storage unit. Dad used to keep files there. If we're going to help him, or convict him, we need to see everything." Olivia stood. "I'm coming with you." The storage unit smelled of dust and secrets. They sifted through boxes of old case notes, photos, and letters. Then Olivia pulled out a thick brown folder labeled "Private Settlements, Not Filed." Opened it slowly. Inside were handwritten agreements. Cases dismissed without court dates. Names crossed out. Cash transfers. All signed by Judge Rawlins. Liam stared. This proves it. He didn't just make one mistake, Olivia whispered. He made dozens. She sat down on the cold floor, folder in her lap. I think Dad thought he was doing the right thing, saving people from bigger problems. But he was playing with justice. Liam nodded. And now it's caught up to all of us. Back at court, the folder was entered as evidence. The room buzzed. Even Claire looked stunned. After court, Olivia approached her outside. You were scared too, weren't you? Claire nodded. My brother told me to lie. Then he vanished. I didn't know what else to do. Olivia reached out. We both did what we had to. Now we keep telling the truth. All of it? Claire looked at her for a long moment before quietly saying, Okay. Later that night, Olivia sat alone in her room. She stared at a photo on her desk, her father in his robe, smiling beside her at last year's school awards ceremony. She turned it face down. She wasn't running from who he was. She was walking toward who she needed to be. Olivia once believed truth lived in books and law, clear, printed, permanent. But now she knew better. Truth didn't always sit quietly. Sometimes it clawed its way out of shadows, demanding to be seen. The court date resumed with new tension. Folder Olivia and Liam had discovered, full of backdoor deals and illegal settlements, was now the center of the case. The judge looked pale as he reviewed the documents. These signatures, he muttered, they're authentic? The forensic specialist nodded. Confirmed. All signed by Judge Thomas Rawlins. The room buzzed with quiet murmurs. Claire's earlier testimony suddenly seemed small. Now they weren't just talking about one mistake or one missing boy. They were looking at years of corruption, patterns of decisions meant to protect the powerful and silence the weak. Olivia sat beside Liam. Her fingers trembled slightly, but her expression stayed calm. Do you think he'll admit it? Liam whispered. No, Olivia said softly. Not yet. He's still holding on. The prosecutor introduced a new witness, a woman named Ruth Torres, mother of a teenager who'd been convicted in one of Rawlins' questionable cases. Took the stand slowly, her voice filled with pain. My son was innocent, she said. We begged for a fair trial. But the judge looked me in the eye and said there was nothing he could do. I didn't know back then that he'd already taken money from the other side. She held up a letter. This was sent to me anonymously. It matched one of the settlement forms your team found. The court grew still. The prosecutor asked gently, Why did you come today? Because I've waited 5 years for someone to finally say out loud what I've known in my heart. When Ruth stepped down, Olivia watched her pass. 2 women, from very different lives now, tied together by the same truth. The defense scrambled. They tried to argue the documents were incomplete, that someone may have framed Judge Rawlins, that perhaps this was all political. But the evidence kept growing. Emails, phone logs, hidden bank accounts. Every hour that passed made it harder to deny. Then came the moment no one expected. The judge asked the defense, Will the accused take the stand? For the first time, Thomas Rawlins looked unsure. He rose from his seat, slow and heavy, like the truth itself was weighing him down. Olivia's breath caught. Her father, once the most powerful man in their home, now stood with trembling hands before a room full of eyes. I did what I thought was necessary, he began. I cut corners. I chose shortcuts. Because I believed justice needed help. But I lost myself in the process. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. I told myself I was protecting the system, he said. But I was protecting myself. He looked over, his eyes briefly meeting Olivia's. And in doing so, I hurt the people I was meant to serve, including my family. The silence that followed was heavier than any sentence. Liam reached over, taking Olivia's hand. Back at home that night, the news ran on every station. Judge admits to years of judicial misconduct. Testimony from his daughter helped uncover everything. Neighbors didn't knock. They didn't stare. They just nodded politely, some with shame, some with respect. Inside, Miriam cooked dinner like it was any other night. But her hands moved slower. I never thought I'd see him break like that, she whispered. Olivia helped. Set the table. He didn't break. He finally told the truth. Liam placed 3 plates instead of 4. They sat in silence a moment, until Miriam said gently, You were brave, Olivia. Olivia shrugged. I was tired of watching lies win. That night, she returned to her notebook. She didn't write facts or witness names this time. She wrote a single sentence. Even when the person you love is wrong, the truth deserves to stand taller. Asterisk, truth didn't fix everything. It didn't. made the pain go away. It didn't erase what happened, but it did something even more powerful. It shifted the silence. And that was enough for Olivia to keep going. Judge Thomas Rawlins was placed under house arrest while the court finalized its sentence. The headlines quieted down. But inside the Rawlins home, the noise had just changed. Miriam walked on eggshells. She barely spoke unless necessary. Liam tried to act like everything was normal, but the way he stayed up late, triple-checking documents and reading news updates, told a different story. And Olivia, she stayed steady. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even sad anymore, She was focused. Her testimony had shaken the system. But it had also done something else. Opened doors. One morning, a letter arrived from a legal advocacy group. Dear Olivia, we were moved by your bravery. We'd like to invite you to speak at our Youth Justice Summit next month in Chicago. All expenses covered. Let us know if you'll attend. She showed it to Liam, who raised his eyebrows. This is big. Really big. I don't know if I'm ready, Olivia said quietly. You were ready the moment you stepped on that stand. That same afternoon, something strange happened as Olivia walked home from the library. A black car pulled up next to her. A man in a suit rolled down the window. You're Olivia Rawlins, right? She stopped. Who's asking? My name's Evan. I work with a nonprofit that protects whistleblowers. Can we talk? Olivia took a step back. I'm not interested in anything shady. Evan smiled. That's why we want to speak with you. You're the kind of voice we need. She hesitated, but eventually agreed to meet him at a coffee shop. Public, safe. Inside, Evan explained everything. We've seen too many stories like yours disappear, buried under the next trending headline. But what you did, it could help hundreds of people who are still afraid to speak. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were names, real people, real cases. Some were judges. Others were police. A few were teachers. All connected by one thing, silence. Most of them want to talk, he said, but they don't want to be alone. Olivia ran her hand over the papers. Why me? Because you didn't just speak up. You stayed standing after. That's rare. She didn't answer right away, but the folder stayed with her. That night, she brought it to Liam. These people, they're stuck where I was. He nodded. Then let's help get them out. Word spread quietly. Emails started trickling in from other teens, adults, even teachers. Some said they were inspired. Some said they were scared. Some just wanted to be heard. Olivia responded to every single one. The Chicago Summit finally arrived. She stood backstage, looking out at a crowd of students, journalists, and legal professionals. The MC introduced her with a simple line. Sometimes, the most powerful person in a courtroom doesn't wear a robe. Please welcome Olivia Rawlins. She stepped forward, heart steady. When I first spoke up, I thought I'd lose everything, she began. And in some ways, I did. But I gained something too, the knowledge that silence is a choice, and so is courage. She told her story plainly. No dramatics. Just truth. And when she finished, the room stood in silence. Then, one by one, people stood and clapped. Not because she was famous, because she was right. After the summit, a news reporter asked her, Do you want to be a lawyer someday? Olivia smiled gently. I want to be the kind of person lawyers listen to. Back home, the Rawlins family started to breathe again. Judge Rawlins would serve 5 years in prison, followed by probation. The court considered his confession and cooperation, but also the weight of his betrayal. He didn't fight it. He hugged Olivia tightly before turning himself in. I was wrong, he said, but you were everything I hoped you'd grow up to be. She nodded. I know. When Olivia spoke the truth, the world listened. But it didn't end there. The real challenge came after, when the headlines faded, and she had to decide what kind of legacy her voice would leave behind. The days after her father's sentencing were quiet, not heavy. Just still. The family no longer walked on eggshells. Instead, they moved carefully, healing in small ways. Miriam started humming again while washing dishes. Liam returned to college, determined to finish his degree in criminal justice. Olivia returned to her notebooks, not just for writing. This time, she was building something. At school, things were different. Some classmates kept their distance. Others came forward quietly. "You were really brave," a boy in math class whispered. "I didn't know we could do stuff like that," another girl said. "I thought only adults mattered." Olivia didn't respond with speeches. She simply nodded, took the praise with calm, and kept doing her work. But something stirred inside her. These kids, they had stories too. She could see it in their eyes. Not all of them were ready to speak, but maybe they just needed someone who had already done it. She began working on a project, a space where students could talk freely about what they'd seen or felt in their homes, schools, or communities. She called it the Silence Box. It wasn't flashy, just a locked wooden box outside the library with a small sign. "Write what you can't say out loud." Every Friday, she opened it. Some notes were nonsense or jokes, but others. "My brother hits me when mom's not home. My coach says girls shouldn't be captains. I saw a teacher take money from a parent and change a grade." Olivia didn't out anyone. She just kept the notes, categorized them, watched for patterns. She shared the idea with Evan, a man from the whistleblower nonprofit. This could be something, he told her, maybe even national. But Olivia wasn't chasing fame. She was chasing voices. One day, Liam came home with news. "Did you hear? That judge in Brighton, the one from Mom's friend's town, he's under investigation." Guess what tipped it off? What? A letter. No return address. But inside was a copy of one of your Silence Box notes. Olivia blinked. "But I didn't send it. Someone else must have. Maybe a teacher. Maybe a kid." He grinned. "You started something real, Live." She stared out the window for a moment. Maybe this was what justice looked like now. Not gavel slams and courtrooms, but slow, honest ripples from one brave voice to another. The local paper picked up the story. Student project leads to judge. Investigation. It didn't mention Olivia by name. She preferred it that way. But at school, more boxes started popping up. One in the art room. One in the nurse's office. Even one near the principal's door. Teachers began paying closer attention. Conversations opened up. Training sessions were introduced for counselors and staff. Olivia stayed quiet. Through it all, she wasn't chasing credit. She was chasing change. One evening, Miriam brought home a small box wrapped in gold ribbon. This came in the mail. Olivia opened it carefully. Inside was a medal. Nothing huge or shiny. Just a simple piece of bronze with her name etched on the back. A note read, "In recognition of courage, clarity, and compassion, for choosing truth over comfort. National Youth Voice Alliance." Liam looked over her shoulder. "You're officially a hero." Olivia smiled. "I'm just someone who refused to stay quiet." Later that night, she added the medal to her drawer. Not on display. Not for show, but as a reminder of who she'd chosen to become. Someone who listened, someone who acted, someone who understood that silence isn't always peaceful. Sometimes, it's just permission to keep doing wrong, and she wasn't going to give that permission ever again. Asterisk, sometimes, courage doesn't look like a big speech or a bold action. Sometimes, it looks like keeping your head down, even when everyone's watching, and still choosing to do the right thing again and again. 3 months passed. The buzz around Olivia's story had faded from the media, but in the community, her Presence still lingered. Students respected her. Teachers took her seriously. The principal even asked her to help update the school's reporting policies. But Olivia had grown quieter, not because she was tired, but because she was learning to listen even more. Then came a phone call. It was from Evan again. "Hey kid, you busy?" "A little. Working on a report about local housing code violations. Some families in our district are being forced to move out because of mold and leaks." There was a pause on the other end. "You really don't stop, do you?" "I don't know how to anymore," he chuckled. "That's why I called. There's a woman who wants to meet you. She's an investigative journalist, big time. She's looking into judicial bias in sentencing and wants your insight." Olivia frowned. "Why me?" "Because you've lived both sides, and you're not afraid to call it what it is." She agreed. To meet the journalist the following Saturday at a bookstore cafe. Her name was Vanessa Cho. She was calm, focused, and direct. "You shook the system," Vanessa said, sipping coffee. "Now I want to help document how deep the cracks go." They spoke for 2 hours. Olivia shared what she'd seen in her father's case, how certain names, zip codes, and income levels seemed to impact sentences more than facts. Vanessa nodded as she took notes. "You speak with such clarity. Did someone teach you that?" "No," Olivia replied. "I just learned that if I don't speak clearly, people will twist what I say." The article came out a week later. It wasn't just about Olivia, but she was mentioned. A full paragraph. Highlighted in bold, teen whistleblower Olivia Rawlins describes the silent patterns behind courtroom decisions. "Some judges don't even know they're doing it," she says. "But the bias is built into their comfort zone." The piece went viral. Not flashy viral, but real, among educators, activists, lawyers, and students. Her inbox filled again, this time with something different. Invitations to join workshops, panels, policy boards. Even a meeting with the state's new Attorney General. Liam watched her shuffle through the emails one night. "You're turning into a full-time justice architect," he joked. "I'm just building from what broke," she answered. One request stood out. It was from a retired judge, a woman named Edith Lyle. Her message read, "I spent 38 years on the bench, and I want to say thank you for reminding me why I took the oath in the first place. Would you like to come visit my foundation for judicial training?" They met the following week. Judge Lyle's foundation was quiet, tucked in a quiet office. Park with gray walls and soft lighting. But inside, Olivia found something remarkable. Rooms full of retired judges, researchers, and law students, all working to fix the system from within. "This place is full of people who spent years making decisions," Judge Lyle said. "Some of them good, some of them less so, but they're ready to listen now." She handed Olivia a notebook. "We want your input. We want your voice in our training materials." Olivia blinked. "You're asking a kid to teach judges?" "No," the woman said, smiling. "I'm asking a truth-teller to help remind us what justice is supposed to look like." And so she did. She sat in on sessions, asked questions that made old minds pause, suggested small changes with big impact, like rephrasing courtroom instructions, to avoid confusing language or adding story-based examples to show how unconscious bias appears. People listened, not because she was loud, but because her words came from real experience. And slowly, piece by piece, Olivia's voice began to echo in spaces that once seemed untouchable. Some people speak to be heard, others speak to be understood. But Olivia had learned the quietest voice in the room could still be the one that changed it. The foundation visits became part of her weekly routine. She'd sit in meetings with judges and law students who used to overlook kids like her. But not anymore. One afternoon, Judge Lyle approached her with a serious look. We're preparing a new module on ethical decision-making. I want you to lead the case study section. Olivia blinked. Me? Lead? You lived through it. No one else in this building can speak from both sides of the bench. Olivia hesitated, then nodded. All right. But we're going to talk about discomfort too. That's why I chose you. Judge Lyle said. Olivia spent hours designing her segment. She didn't want it to just be about her father. She wanted it to be about choices, the quiet ones that build up over time until they become a fall. When she finally presented it, the room stayed silent throughout. One student raised her hand at the end. How did you decide to tell the truth? Knowing it would hurt your family? Olivia didn't flinch, because hiding the truth was already hurting us. We just didn't admit it yet. The next day, news came from the state capitol. A proposal had been introduced to create an independent board that reviewed sentencing data and judicial behavior. It would be the first of its kind in the region. At the bottom of the document, it sighed, inspired by testimony and advocacy, led by Olivia Rawlins. Liam read the headline 3 times. You're in a government file now, he said, half joking. I didn't ask for that. Olivia replied. No, but you earned it. That weekend, they visited their father in prison. The facility was sterile, with gray walls and buzzing lights. Olivia hadn't seen him in months. He looked older, thinner, but his eyes still carried the sharpness she remembered. Hello, Olivia, he said as she sat down. Hi, Dad. There was a pause. I've been following what you're doing, he said. They even showed me one of your interviews. She looked at him directly. I'm not doing it to shame you. I know, he said quietly. You're doing it to fix what I broke. She nodded. I still remember the way you used to talk about justice, like it was this clean, sharp thing. But it isn't, is it? No, he admitted. It's messy. But that doesn't mean we stop trying to clean it. Before they left, he touched her hand gently. I'm proud of you, Olivia. Even if I wasn't the kind of father you needed, you became the person this world needed. She didn't cry. She just said, thank you, and walked out with Liam by her side. Outside the prison gates, the wind picked up. Liam turned to her. You okay? Yeah, she said. That was a goodbye. Not forever. Just to who I thought he was. And she meant it. From that point on, Olivia stopped chasing his approval. She didn't need it anymore. She had her own purpose now, and it was much bigger than one family's story. Asterisk, when people ask how change happens, they often expect a big moment, a protest, a speech, a ruling. But Olivia knew better. Change was slow, quiet, and made from choices no one claps for. Word about the proposal in the state capital spread quickly. Local news stations invited Olivia for interviews. Schools asked her to speak to their students. Even a university professor reached out about including her silence box project in a research study. But Olivia didn't say yes to everything. She chose carefully, because to her, this wasn't about attention. It was about building something that could last. At her school, the silence box had evolved. Now it had a dedicated team, 4 students and a guidance counselor who met every Friday to read the notes and figure out next steps. The principal even agreed to add a second box in the teacher's lounge. We're watching each other now, Olivia told Liam. Not in a bad way, just more aware. Liam nodded. You lit a match. Now people are carrying their own candles. One day, Olivia received a voice note through a secure app set up by the foundation. It was from a boy named Malik, age 15, from a city 3 hours away. His voice was shaky. My dad's a detective. I think he's been hiding stuff. Not just in his cases, but at home. I'm scared to say more. I saw your video. If I tell someone, will everything fall apart? Olivia sat with the message for hours before replying. She sent back a soft, steady voice recording. Hi, Malik. First, thank you for trusting me. What you're carrying sounds heavy. And no, speaking up doesn't break things. It reveals what's already broken, and that's how we start fixing it. He responded a day later. I haven't told anyone else, but I will. Soon. Olivia didn't hear from him again for weeks, but that was okay. Not everyone moved at the same pace. Meanwhile, she was invited to speak at a university conference for law students. The audience was older this time. Future prosecutors. Future judges. She opened her speech with something simple. I'm not here because I'm brave. I'm here because no one else was listening when the wrong things were happening. She paused, then added, Imagine if your decisions someday affect someone like me, a kid who notices more than they say. Are you ready to be seen that way? There was a silence, but it was thoughtful, heavy, real. After the speech, a student approached her. My mom was a prosecutor. I used to think I wanted to be like her, he said. Now I think I want to be like you instead. Olivia smiled. Be yourself. Just make sure your choices help someone besides yourself. That night, she sat with Judge Lyle and asked a question. That had been on her mind. How do you know when justice is working? The older woman folded her hands. You don't always. Sometimes you only know when it stops working, when people get hurt. Then how do we keep it alive? Olivia asked. You put people like you in the room. Those words stuck with Olivia. So she kept walking into rooms that weren't made for kids. She sat at school board meetings. She attended town halls. She reviewed community reports and asked hard questions. And people listened, not because she raised her voice, but because she raised her standard. Asterisk. Most people think kids just learn from adults. But Olivia had flipped that belief upside down. She had become the teacher, one lesson at a time. Months passed. Fall leaves gave way to bare branches. Olivia's school hosted a community event called Voices Unmuted, a student-led evening where kids shared anonymous stories collected from silence boxes. Some read poetry. Others shared essays. One girl stood up and simply read a note she had found. My uncle touches me when no one's looking. I'm afraid to sleep at their house again. The auditorium went completely still. A counselor quietly walked the girl. Off stage, no one clapped. But every person in that room felt the shift. The power of giving a voice to pain got Olivia stood by the curtain, not performing but watching. She didn't need to be on stage to know her work mattered. After the event, a group of parents approached the principal. We didn't know these things were happening, one mother whispered. The principal nodded. We didn't ask the right questions, but now we will. That same night, Malik messaged Olivia again. I told my school counselor. She connected me to someone. They're investigating now. My mom's scared, but she said she's proud of. Olivia responded with only one word. Brave. The next morning, as Olivia walked through the school hallway, she saw something new. Sticky notes, all different colors, lined the walls. Each one had a message. Your voice matters. You are not alone. Speaking up is strong. Thank you, Olivia. She stopped in front of one written in messy handwriting. I didn't know I could matter until you did. Tears stung her eyes, but she blinked them away. Liam met her outside after school. Guess what? He said, smiling. The governor just signed off on that sentencing oversight board. They're naming it the Rawlins Review. Olivia froze. Wait, with our name? Yeah, and not because of Dad, because of you. She didn't know how to feel. Part of her wanted to reject it, to run from her last name, but another part realized something deeper, that changing the meaning of her family's name was the truest justice of all. The next week, She was invited to a televised town hall hosted by a major news outlet. The theme, Youth and Reform, when the system fails. She sat on a panel next to a civil rights lawyer and a former prosecutor. The host asked, "Olivia, do you believe your father's punishment was fair?" She paused. No sentence can undo the damage. But honesty about what happened, and what's still broken, matters more than time served. The audience nodded in quiet agreement. The lawyer added, "What Olivia's doing isn't just brave. It's structural. She's helping reshape how communities respond to harm." After the event, Olivia received a call from someone unexpected. It was Claire. Her voice was soft, unsure. "Hey, I saw you on the town hall. I just wanted to say, I was scared back. Then, I didn't know how to tell the full truth." Olivia replied gently, "I know. You did what you could. And now you're here. That counts." There was silence. Then Claire said, "I'm starting a silence box at my new school. I already have 5 notes." Olivia smiled. That's how it begins. What started as a whisper had turned into a ripple, and then a wave. Olivia never planned to lead it. She just couldn't stay silent. But now, people were listening, not just to her voice, but to what it had awakened in them. The Rawlins Review Board held its first official meeting in a state building downtown. Olivia was invited to observe, not as a token guest, but as the voice that had sparked it all. Liam drove her there. "Are you nervous?" he asked. "No," she said. "I'm ready." She wore her usual, a simple navy jacket and her black notebook under one arm. Inside the chamber, lawmakers, community leaders, and legal experts gathered. Cameras weren't allowed. This wasn't about headlines anymore. It was about decisions. Chairwoman began the meeting by pointing directly at Olivia. "We wouldn't be sitting here today if a 13-year-old girl hadn't dared to say, 'This isn't right.' Let her story be our reminder of what happens when the system forgets who it's meant to protect." Olivia didn't blush. She simply opened her notebook and took notes. The first issue on the agenda, racial disparity in sentencing for minor drug offenses. Then came the second, revisiting past cases where private settlements may have influenced outcomes. Each discussion pulled threads from stories Olivia had already heard. Some from her silence box, others from the people who'd written her after the news broke. She passed a note to the chair during one heated exchange. Agreed. "What protections are in place for youth who testify against family members?" "It's still not clear." The chair read it, nodded, and brought it up right away. That was Olivia's power now. She didn't need to shout. She just knew exactly when to ask the right question. Back at school, more students had started opening up. Olivia's counselor, Miss Vega, told her that since the Voices Unmuted event, counseling requests had tripled. "Some of these kids have been carrying things for years," she said. "You helped open the door." But Olivia knew it wasn't about her being special. It was about her being visible. One day, a younger student, a shy 5th grader, approached her in the library. "Are you the girl from the news?" "I guess," Olivia replied, smiling. Softly, "My sister said you make people listen. Can you teach me how to do that?" Olivia knelt down beside her. "You already started," you asked. "That's step 1. The little girl grinned and ran back to her seat. Later that week, Olivia received a small brown envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a note that simply said, "Your father made bad choices, but you gave the name Rawlins a second meaning. Thank you for that." Tucked inside was a folded newspaper clipping. One Olivia hadn't seen. It showed a former defendant in one of her father's tampered cases receiving a formal apology from the court. The caption read, "Cleared after 6 years. Redemption begins." Olivia folded the clipping carefully and placed it inside her notebook. Redemption wasn't fast or loud. But it was real, and she would keep showing up for it, one step at a time. The spotlight never mattered to Olivia. It was what happened when the lights dimmed that she truly cared about. That's when the real work began. Olivia sat in the back of a small-town courtroom one afternoon, not as a witness, not as a speaker, just as someone watching. A new judge had taken the bench, and this was her first public case review. The court was testing transparency, part of the reforms sparked by the Rawlins Review Board. She watched how the judge asked questions, how she looked people in the eye, how she didn't rush. When the hearing ended, the judge noticed Olivia and walked over. "You're Olivia Rawlins, aren't you?" Olivia stood up. "Yes, I've read your silence box reports. I've started a version at our local juvenile center. Kids leave notes in a journal at the front desk." Olivia's face lit up. "That's amazing." "Thank you," the judge said. "It reminds me that justice isn't only handed down, it should rise from the ground up." Back home, Liam showed her something even bigger. "Look," he said, handing her a laptop. It was a digital map, one created by a small nonprofit, showing every city in the state that had adopted some version of the silence box model. There were more than 20. Some boxes were in schools, some in libraries, a few in recreation centers. But they were all rooted in the same purpose: let people speak safely. And it all traced back to Olivia. But she didn't let that go to her head. Instead, she used it as fuel. She wrote a guide, a simple PDF called How to Start a Listening Space. It included safety tips, steps for anonymous collection, and how to bring trusted adults into the loop. She sent it to anyone who asked. Within 2 weeks, over 300 downloads. Soon after, she was asked to join a youth committee for policy review. At the district level, "You'll be the youngest member," the coordinator warned her. "Some of the adults might not take you seriously." "That's okay," Olivia replied. "They'll learn." At her first meeting, she listened for nearly an hour before speaking. But when she did, she asked a question no one had considered. What if we required teachers to have basic trauma response training, not just for emergencies, but for day-to-day? Trust building? Silence, then nods. One committee member said, "That's a very good point." The chair smiled. "I think we just found our strongest voice." Back at home, Olivia found herself sitting on the porch. One evening, the air cool and quiet. Miriam brought her a cup of tea. "You've done so much," her mother said gently. "But don't forget to rest sometimes." Olivia nodded. "I know. But it's hard to stop when there's still so much to fix." Miriam looked out at the dark sky. Fixing things doesn't mean you have to carry it all alone. Olivia took a deep breath. She didn't cry, but she leaned her head on her mother's shoulder, and for once, let herself be the daughter again, not the warrior. Change didn't come with applause. It arrived in the quiet, in the conversations people had when no one else was listening. And Olivia had become the reason those conversations started at all. Winter came early that year. Snow lined the edges of Olivia's school building. But inside, warmth spread, not just from the heaters, but from the way people had started looking out for each other. The silence box had now become digital too. An app developed by 2 senior students with Olivia's help allowed kids to submit concerns anonymously from home. They called it Speak Safe. The principal approved it quickly. "I'm seeing problems reported before they grow," he told Olivia one day. "It's like the hallway finally has ears." News outlets started covering the trend. How one teen sparked a statewide culture of speaking up. The silence movement, where students now refuse to be ignored. But Olivia didn't stop. She spent weekends helping other schools set up Speak Safe. She trained volunteers. She answered questions from educators. She even helped a middle school in another state set up their first box by video call. During one of those sessions, a teacher asked her, "How do you keep from burning out?" Olivia smiled softly. "Because I'm not fixing everything. I'm just making it harder to pretend nothing's wrong." At home, Liam had started writing about Olivia's work on a blog. His posts reached college students, young voters, and future educators. "People want something to believe in," he told her. "You gave them that." One night, while updating the Speak Safe training manual, Olivia received a letter in the mail. No name on the envelope, just a school district. Stamped from the other side of the country. She opened it carefully. Inside was a hand-drawn picture of a girl holding a small black box with hearts coming out of it. Below, in shaky handwriting, were the words, "I told the truth because you did." Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes. Not sad tears. Just full. She showed the drawing to Miriam and Liam at dinner. Miriam touched the paper gently. "Your voice went somewhere you've never even been." Olivia nodded. "I think that's the point." Later that week, a law school invited her to deliver a guest lecture. The topic was Justice and Youth, Reimagining Trust. She stood in front of a packed lecture hall, students twice her age, professors in the back row. She began without a speech. "I used to think justice was something only adults got to define," she said. "Then I watched it get twisted. I watched it get bought. And I realized justice needs all of us, especially the ones no one expects." The room was silent. She continued, "I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. But I am someone who saw something wrong and said something that makes me accountable. And that makes me powerful." The applause came slowly, then grew into a standing ovation. Afterward, a professor approached her. "We want to use your case study in our ethics course. Would you be okay with that?" Olivia nodded. "As long as you remind them I was 13. When this started, not to praise me, but to warn them. Because if a 13-year-old can see what's broken, and they can't, that's a problem." Olivia never set out to change the system. She just refused to be quiet in the face of injustice. And sometimes, that's all it takes to start something that never ends. Spring arrived. Fresh flowers bloomed near the school's entrance. And Olivia stood beneath the same tree where she once sat in silence, unsure if speaking up would cost her everything. Now, the bench beside that tree had a small plaque. "In honor of those who speak when others can't," inspired by Olivia Rawlins. She didn't ask for it, but when she saw it, she smiled, not because it was her name, but because it meant the message would last. Liam had gotten accepted into a graduate program for social justice and policy. He was packing for school out of state, and their conversations had shifted from past pain to future plans. Miriam had joined a local community board to help with neighborhood safety, something she never would have imagined doing a year ago. And Olivia had just gotten her first official invitation to testify at a federal youth justice roundtable, not as a guest. As a contributor. She traveled to Washington, D.C., accompanied by a staff member from the nonprofit. The buildings were taller, the people wore suits, and the voices were louder. But Olivia remained calm. She entered the room filled with government officials, policy advisors, and national advocates. When asked to share her story, she didn't read from a paper. She simply said, "I'm here today because silence almost protected the wrong people. I spoke up because someone had to. Now I want to make sure it doesn't take another scared teenager to fix what grown-ups keep ignoring." She laid out her ideas clearly. More school-based listening programs. Training for teachers to spot subtle warning signs, resources for youth who report family abuse or institutional neglect. Her voice never shook, and when she finished, one of the federal advisors leaned forward and said, "You've reminded us who's really watching, and who we need to listen to more." Back home, Life returned to something like normal, but not quiet, not anymore. People still emailed. Schools still reached out. And more cities adopted versions of SpeakSafe and silence boxes. One evening, Olivia sat at her desk, flipping through her old notebooks. She found the first page from the day her father had been arrested. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but I know I can't pretend it didn't happen. She traced her fingers over the words. So much had changed. Not just the system, not just the world around her, but her. She no longer saw herself as the girl who broke the silence. She was now the girl who built something from it. A knock came at her. Door. Was Liam, holding a letter. Came for you. Looks important. She opened it and found an invitation from a prestigious law fellowship. They wanted her to help develop a national curriculum for youth. Civic leadership. She laughed softly. Guess I'm not done yet. Liam grinned. You are never going to be. Later that night, Olivia stepped outside. The stars were out, quiet, distant, but always there. Just like truth, just like change. And as the wind passed through the trees, she whispered a quiet promise. To the sky, as long as someone's afraid to speak, I'll keep listening.